If our podcast is helping you with your mental health, Zach and I would be so grateful if you could hit the follow or subscribe button wherever you get your podcasts. It's a simple action, but it really helps a lot. Thank you. On the first day I walked into Zach's therapy room in my hometown of Dublin, Ireland, I was one seriously lost dude. I had no direction and no real knowledge of what I needed from life. Zach told me that he'd help me to find my authentic self, whatever that meant. 3 years later, I had made some serious changes, and Zach even helped me to get sober.
When I first met Stephen, he was a very lost soul, and I wasn't even sure to what degree the platform of therapy could help him. What followed was a journey to which I had the privilege to be part of, as I watched this young man dig deep and disrupt his old behaviours and beliefs. He eventually walked out of my room a changed man, and I believe he did find a more authentic self.
So despite all of my healing and growing, it's not over, because I'm back for more. This is one man
and his therapist. Well, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm pretty good. Yes. I think I'll answer that throughout the next number of minutes.
Indeed.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm very good. It's a very pleasant winter Dublin day. Very pleasant. So that helps. The weather really does help us, I think, as to how we start our day off. So yeah. What's on your mind today? When you were preparing for session and getting everything set up, and the mind starts to mull over maybe what our work will be today, because this is work. Hopefully gentle work, but work. Where were your thoughts? Where were your thoughts landing about topics or our focus for the next while?
Sure. So one thing I want to call us both out on is that what we often do is that we get to the end of the session, and then you might say to me, think about this for next day, and we'll talk about it then. And then we start the next session, and we don't refer back to what we were meant to do. We said we were going to talk about. So I know exactly what happened. I know exactly what the last thing was you said to me in the last session.
Great. Because when you say you're calling us out on it, you're really calling yourself out. In that it's for you to bring to the table, not me.
Okay.
In that, I said to you, next time, remember, and let's start off with, and I say that not as a reluctance to share the blame, but just to really place it firmly in your lap, and to know that it is for you to hold, remember, and bring back to the conversation. Because between last time we talked and now, I've had 30 other conversations. And in order for the awareness to be accurate and for you to sort of own the journey more than me, let me just put it in your lap and say, I really need you to be the one that brings that to the session at the top of session. Let's not be relying on my recall. And much better that we rely on yours.
No, I'm very happy that I've brought it up then, because it's good that it's good that I know that that's one of the parameters. I didn't realize that was on me. Suppose, so that's cool. That's good.
Yeah, we didn't flesh that out, I suppose, but we just have. Great.
Maybe when we used to work together in person, that's the way it used to work, and I guess I'd just forgotten. And I think now that you're saying it, I do kind of. It's coming back to me that I used to open my journal and then be like, so I get it. I hear you.
Actually, yes, I do remember, because you used to have those wonderful leather-bound journals that looked like the most expensive journal anybody could ever buy. And they were so wonderful. It gave a gravitas to the content, the fact that you would unknot the leather strap and open the journal. It was quite ceremonial. I quite liked it. And that probably did make it easier for us to have that format of the immediate checking in with our bullet point list for the day or for the session. And probably the online version that we're doing now makes it a little bit different. So good. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
but
I mean, I suppose that's solved quite simply by you having those wonderful journals on the table in front of you where you are. As simple as that.
which I normally which I normally do. However, I just came to the studio in a hurry, and I've left my journal, which I write in at nighttime, next to my bed. But
Yeah.
I do have, I do know what we last spoke about, and I do think it's very much worth picking up on it. The last day we spoke, we were talking about it was kind of a New Year talk, and I was talking about 3 words that were going to kind of carry me through the year. I was hoping, or certainly planning on it. It's kind of funny though, because it's a good example of how therapy keeps you in check. Because since we haven't met for a couple of weeks, I was like, what were those words again? And so, what date is it? The 20th? Yeah, it's like late January.
Yeah.
And so, so it's coming back to those words, but I have to say that actually coming into this new year, I have been so much more on top of my game in general just by implementing a few rules. But these 3 words were balance, softening, and consistency. And you said to me, what word would you like to focus on next day? And you said something along the lines of, I think it will become clear to you. And it certainly has. And the word softening for me has, I don't know whether that was what you were thinking, but for me, softening on myself is what what kind of hit me after our session. I was like, man, I'm very hard on myself all the time. And I don't know whether that was what was in your mind, but
Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
let me tell you, one of the troubles I find that people have with the challenge of the softening. Others have different terms for it, but I like your one. Is that the softening to soften the approach with oneself? I find that people sort of equate that to reducing their drive, or if they sometimes people think if they soften themselves or they soften their approach to themselves, that in some way they're going to compromise their discipline or their drive or their responsibility to get certain things done. Because I think we often sort of, that phrase, give yourself a kick in the butt,
Mm-hmm.
we often think of giving ourselves a hard time in order to get it done. It's like we're getting serious, we're giving ourselves, a good talking to get this over the line. So I do think a firm sort of ownership conversation with self is important to carry through in your responsibilities. And sort of firm ownership of what you need to do is quite different from being soft with yourself. So I'm all on for ownership, responsibility, owning your journey, stepping up, doing, what's required of you. And those firm, responsible self-talks, I think, should continue. But when we talk about the softening, for me, and you can tell me how this fits with your thinking, for me, the softening is just being aware of the inner bully dialogue that sometimes creeps back in when one curses at oneself or just puts oneself down in a moment of frustration, in a moment of low mood. And it really serves no good purpose other than to bury you deeper down into a low self. Um, so it's the bully self-talk is what I'm really concerned about. And that would be my motivation as to what to encourage you to soften. So just tell me, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I suppose I'd be guilty of the negative self-talk to an extent. But I think that, as I think I said before, like, the more I'm engaged with things like meditation and, well, specifically meditation, really, I've been practicing a lot this month, nearly every day, and yeah, I mean, it's amazing the distance it gives me from my mind and from my thoughts. Um, and yeah, so I don't know. I guess I don't. I think there are moments, yes, for sure. There's moments where I really doubt myself. I think it's more doubt than anything like aggressive. It's not. I'm not
Sure.
aggressive with myself. My
That's good.
language
Yeah.
isn't aggressive. It's not. It's not like you're a fucking shit. You're a piece of shit. You're nothing.
Mm,
You're a whatever. It's not that.
mm.
It's more like you're an asshole. Actually, it can be in that way. It can be aggressive in the way that I'm like, because I do question myself in how I am in my relationship. Um. So. Um. And how I am, and how I am, and this does relate to the softening thing. How I am in the world. I question myself all the time because as we've spoken quite a bit about, I go around judging a lot. um,
Silently.
Judging, it's interesting living in a different culture, and I'm wondering, is it to do with that? But then I remember when I lived in Dublin, I'd be I'd be the same. I have this quite intense state of mind where everything was in some way a threat, I suppose, or if it wasn't a threat, it didn't go along with my way of seeing the world.
Mm.
I'll give you a very rudimentary example. In Dublin, I find it absolutely absurd and obscene the amount of cars on the road. Um, and as a person who both drives and cycles, I used to cycle into town every day from Island Bridge, and the cars used to come within 30 centimeters of me, and I used to get absolutely outraged. Um, and just think, like, or now here being in Romania, people parking in the cycle lanes as if it's not a big deal, as if they have some sort of play, you know, all these different things. And I think this all ties in with, previous chats we've been having recently. It's like, I both need to soften towards myself, towards the world around me. But I also I need to, I need to figure out and it goes back to boundaries, I suppose. I need to figure out where is, where is the line? Where do I stop becoming, you know, okay, or in some way correct, and where do I start being an asshole? And it also comes into my relationship. My wife has been telling me lately that, in her therapy, it seems that that it seems to be coming back from her therapist that I am in some way unconsciously controlling. It was news to me, um, and a horrible shock to hear that could be the case. And now I'm very conscious of that. Am I in some way manipulative? Um, um, and this again ties into softening. How am I being with my wife? How am I? Am I a fucking asshole? Like, and the case could be made that yes, indeed, I am. Not all the time, and I'm very quick to apologize and to say very nice things. But fuck, I can be a real dickhead. So I need to soften to myself, but I also need to own up as well
Mm. Yeah.
to
Okay.
to my behaviors and to my ways of being in the world, because
Yeah.
I don't think I'm on track in terms of how I want to be in many ways.
I think when I first started to get to know you in at the start of our journey of therapy way back when, I think your softening has changed quite a bit in that I think your negative self-talk was much more of an issue at that time than it is now in your life. So I remember a lot of bully talk, a lot of not inner rage, but there was a lot of criticism, a lot of sort of aggravated criticism of self from you, quite a bit, and yes, of others too. But I remember more so that self, uh, there's sort of that self criticism more than anything else. And now at this point in our journey, it's interesting today that you're saying, look, my my inner softening has improved. I'm not, I don't give myself such a hard time anymore. It's incidental. I have moments, but you're naming it that. But my judgment of others, my tolerance of others, is really the piece to look at.
Yeah.
So great that the sort of the self talk has improved, and that's starting at the core. So that's what we want, and great that you can name it that there is some judgment going on of others. And it's not so much the judgment, but it's the impact it's having on you. And then that led into you talking about feedback from your wife's therapist about the manipulation.
Hmm.
So do you want to spend a few minutes talking about how you responded to your wife's feedback from therapy around the manipulation piece? Do you want to talk a little more about that or not?
Yeah. No, I mean, I, I'd love to. Well, I don't know how. I don't know. I don't really know how it manifests, so it's difficult for me to kind of be particularly descriptive of it, or,
Well, it leads to the question that when she gave you this feedback, did you guys expand on that conversation together for you to understand better what she meant?
well, we probably, to be honest, it's a bit of a blur. I think I was a bit shocked to hear that,
Okay.
um, and sad, and yeah. I mean, we're good at talking. We're good at sitting down and trying to hammer things out. But I do think that I do think that, this is another thing that needs to be worked on. But I do think that I am quite reactive and defensive, even if I like to think that I'm not. Um, I think at times I really can be. And
Yeah.
and it and the problem is, Zach, is like that. It's not who I am at my core. At least it's not who I think. I don't think I'm that person. I don't think I'm a. First, I'm definitely. I don't think I'm a manipulative or controlling person. However, I don't know. I don't know. It makes me doubt myself. It makes me feel like I'm a bit mad, actually. And I said that to Rebecca. I said, "You're making me feel like I'm a bit mad by saying this stuff to me, because I don't know how I'm doing this."
Hmm. You're making me feel. Hmm. I understand that when she said it, you were taken aback. I get it. You froze a little. You got a little bruised by it. I understand that. Um, because you thought better of yourself, and all of a sudden something's been suggested that sort of makes you question your own reality of how you perceive yourself and how you're behaving, right?
Hmm.
But I hear this sort of very catastrophized part of your personality coming out, this dramatic response that you had to her remarks,
Hmm.
and how you probably emotionally went over the top a bit, and how you took it in and how it impacted you. And by the way, I think we're all quite defensive and reactive in conversations like this with our partners or friends. So quite typical of you, and of people, really, the way you responded. That doesn't, it never sounds nice when you hear such feedback. But once you've thawed out and that freeze has passed and you've got time to digest, there's a very worthy and very, very helpful conversation to be had, um, with your partner on this. You know, that is obviously yet to come, but this can be fleshed out. Um, you know, would you agree she's entitled to give you the type of feedback that she did about her work in therapy?
Yeah, of course. And, I think that it's funny you say you picked up on how I reacted, as in, you're making me, and Rebecca does often say, you have a real tendency of making things about yourself. If she's in a bad mood, I'll say, I'll think it's about me.
Hmm.
Um, so yes,
When you say you're making me feel, oh, I hear you blaming her,
yeah.
but we agree she's entitled to say what she said, but you sort of hit back with a bit of blame. Is that right?
Yeah, again, like, look, the conversation in my head is muddy and
Hmm.
unclear.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
I can't be too
Uh,
specific, but yeah, it feels like that was my response. Yeah.
okay. Um,
Um,
and, our initial responses in these scenarios, well, let's not judge our initial responses too heavily. It's about the follow up. It's not about the first conversation. It's about the second and the third and the fourth, where the great work is done in relationships. She was brave to put this out there, I think. When anybody brings to a relationship what could be perceived as a criticism of the other person, but they put it out there in order to take courage and to sort of add grist to the mill, sort of like, contribute something to move the relationship on. Well, then it's an opportunity not to be missed. So, despite the muddy, blurred lines you have in your recall about it, I would hope that you guys maybe over the next while can maybe sit back down again and go back over the conversation. And may I suggest a really simple way of doing it? But of course, you're welcome to your own method on this. But a simple way is to say to your partner, "Do you remember when you told me about the X and the Y? And do you remember the way I responded? Okay, I'd like to have another go at that. I've been giving it some thought, and I'd like to give you some more productive feedback. I'd like to give something a little bit of more value to that conversation. So can we sit down, and do you mind saying it to me again? As you said it last time, just say it to me again. I'd like to have another go at discussing that with you."
okay.
And you just go again, take two.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
may I just add that when you pitch it that way to a partner, there's so much going on. You're saying, "I acknowledge my first response wasn't really the best one, but I'm owning it, and I'm responding to your courage and your ability to put it out there, and by respecting you enough to go at to name it, that I want to go at it again and work this with you." So there's so much in it when you say that. That's maybe not necessarily how it's always heard, because I can't speak on behalf of everybody's partners. But I think you know where I'm coming from with that.
Hmm.
Hmm?
No, it's a very, I like the idea of it for sure.
Okay, good. Um,
Um, no, it's just, I suppose, like, when I'm in that defensive place or whatever, it's coming from, there is like an impetus, like there's a justification in my head for why I'm being defensive, because this isn't one-sided. I'm sharing one side of a story that makes me look like or seem like the one completely in the wrong, and, like, it's a two-way thing. It's like, so I feel like there are certain triggers that maybe lead me to being that way, if I am that way. um
yeah. I mean, I sensed even that you panicked a bit when you were accused of being a manipulator. There was a bit of panic in you.
yeah, maybe.
Okay. Um, Look, can I say that we're all at some level, we're all manipulating and working the space all of the time in everything we do with everybody. Okay, we have to sort of navigate the world each day and each person we meet by reading the room, picking up on signals, responding, controlling. There's so much going on. So manipulation's in a way, quite a broad term. I think it's a sort of an essential part of the survival of the of the human to manipulate. So we won't get too caught up about that at the moment, but I'll bring you back to something that's in your journal from a long time ago. We identified 3 strong tenets or elements of the person in addiction, and you and I were talking about that triad, those 3 bullet points of the triangle. We talked about how the person in addiction was both juvenile, manipulative, and somewhat narcissistic. So we talked about the narcissistic, juvenile, manipulative self. They were 3 of the elements we would have identified and that you were able to reflect upon in your behaviour during your time of addiction. Any recall on that?
That's actually funny that you say that, because I've been thinking about that this morning, actually. I think walking the dog, like, you know, and that's one of the reasons that, you know, whatever issues I have with AA and stuff, that's one of the reasons programs like that are very helpful, because on a daily basis you're reminded that you're an addict. But I just couldn't live with this self-flagellation for the rest of my life every day. But there is a lot of merit to it, in the sense that, you know, because I don't think every day, oh, Stephen, you're a dude who had a really bad alcohol problem. I just don't think about it anymore, you know?
Yeah.
So, like, but I am an addict, if you want to call me that, or whatever word us humans make to put each other in boxes. So I have those tendencies, and yes, the word controlling is actually, controlling and narcissistic are battling for first place in a race, you know, in my head, when I think about my behavior in the past. And I think, really, if I'm brutally honest, you know, I think it's how I am still in so many ways. So, you know, again, the word softening comes in. How do I soften this behavior? How do I, you know, even, I give you, like, it's a slight tangent, but I think it's worth saying. I'm so, like, even addicted to my little morning routine, you know, and like I love it. It gives me great joy. But if it's in any way fucked with, you know, I get really pissed off, you know, and like, for example, this morning, a lovely friend, Rebecca, had invited a lovely friend over. Now, I didn't throw a hissy fit or any shit like that. But in my head, I was like, fuck's sake, you know, my fucking morning routine. Like,
yeah.
you know, like, I want to enjoy my fucking breakfast, and
Well,
then the girl came over.
Precious to you. It sounds precious.
It is, but why should it be, Zach? You know what I mean? Like, you know, a lovely girl then came over who I am very, you know, fond of, and we had breakfast together, and it was a lovely experience. You know,
Yeah.
why do I need to be this asshole in my head? You know?
Well, okay. Well, we take the asshole bit out. Why do you need to feel so anxious or rigid about that? Initially, at least. I mean, you went on to experience the good company of somebody who shook up the snow globe of your morning and made it in some way even better by having their company. But initially, your reaction was protective, defensive, agitated. I'm guessing because your morning routine keeps you in that window of tolerance. Because when you're in your window of tolerance, life feels comfortable, your body's in an optimal state, you're reasonable, your emotion is calm. You can be calm but not tired, you know. So your routines, your meditations, your morning rituals keep you in the window of tolerance. And you're a grounded, present, relaxed person when you're in that mindset. And I think I think you feel as if these routines are vital in order to keep you within that tolerance window.
Yeah,
And
that's fair.
if that's sort of compromised, if someone threatens that, I think you get dysregulated and you move into an irritable, agitated state.
Yeah.
And then you manage to curb that and bite your tongue and just go passive aggressive on the inside about the whole thing.
Mm.
And then as you settled in and had the chat and the friend joined the table, you then, sounds like you went back into your window of tolerance. You got out of dysregulation and went back down into that tolerant place as you realized there's no threat. In fact, there is an addition. This is a welcome change to the routine. But as I've described it that way, I'm sure I haven't got it bang on, but so reflect for me as to the pitch I just gave as to my understanding as to why you responded the way you did. How's that landing with you? Reshape it for me or give me more insight if you can.
Well, I think you're bang on. I mean, you've given me great insight by just saying yes. I mean, that I suppose these things are my way of coping with life, with getting through life in a good way, as in, you know, the more good days I have, the better the experience of life is. And there are certain things I know, if they happen, that the likelihood of the day being a better day is much stronger. You know, so, you know, those things being, have a cold shower. You know, I sound like a bloody broken podcast, but like, you know, it's the truth. You know, there's a reason why these things have become so prevalent, because they fucking work. You know, but I mean, I have a cold shower. I walk my dog. It's snowing here. It's beautiful. I walk my dog in the snow. Um, I meditate. I eat really nice food, and I watch a life enhancing video. That's what I do nearly every morning, and I love it.
How lovely.
Like,
I mean, and let me just say to you that if during the day you need a quick calm down and it's too much of a palaver to go and have a cold shower, just running cold water on your wrist for 1 minute and
yeah,
bringing that coldness to your body instantly through the wrists is just a lovely way. It's what we call, it's part of a thing called, we call the tip method.
uh,
It's a temperature drop. By bringing a temperature drop to your body really fast with water on the wrists, cold water, it's a wonderfully calming thing to do, and it's so fast. You know,
nice.
it works really quick, and it's so simple. Just dropping your body temperature, you know, that little bit. It really arrests the brain and makes the brain go, whoa. You know,
Mm.
it's like bang. It's like straight in. There's an instant response in the mind body when that happens. So keep
How
that in
long did you
mind.
say to do it for?
Oh, I do it for maybe no more than a minute, 30 seconds, a minute. If the water's really cold, you know, after 5-10 seconds, you can you feel that zizz in your body and already it's starting to impact. Um,
Nice.
so for me, it's cold water on the wrists for maybe 30 seconds, a minute, then to sit on the side of the bed or on a chair and do paired muscling and paired muscle relaxation. We can talk through that in detail if you'd like in a while.
Mm.
And then some purposeful breathing. And between the water on the wrists, the paired muscling, and the purposeful breathing, the whole thing takes about maybe 4 or 5 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
you know, tops. And to bring those three elements in that short space of time can just really um, have such a positive impact on self. It's worth a shot, worth practicing. You know, you practice it when you don't need it, and then when you need it, it has been practiced, and it impacts then straight away. One doesn't
Yeah.
really have to practice putting water on the wrists, but to practice the paired muscling and the purposeful breathing. Um,
Yeah, I
we
love the
can,
breathing. I do the breathing all right.
yeah.
Never heard of
What's your
paired
method?
muscling.
What's your method of breathing? What do you have a preference? So many options on
Well, I like the box breathing,
it.
or sometimes I do the Wim Hof breathing.
Yeah.
Um,
It might be. I'd love you to explore maybe there's the 4-7-8 breathing rhythm, which is interesting too. It's an Vedic breathing method. It's into the count of 4, hold to the count of 7, and breathe out through pursed lips to the count of 8. And you do 3 rotations of it. It was originally developed to help people with insomnia because it really sort of alters your state. They say do it no more than 3 or 4 rotations and then stop. But for some, it's really good. To be honest with you, different strokes, different folks when it comes to the breathing exercises. but there's so many of them.
Yeah.
Nobody has any excuse not to find one that fits for them. You have to, try them all out. While we're on the topic, let me give you a quick 1-minute tutorial on paired muscling. I
Okay.
want you to imagine as you sit in the chair where you are now, if you think about your feet for a moment, and if you curl your toes and crunch your feet so the muscles are tense, you crunch them and hold to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax the feet. Now, crunch and make tense your calf muscles. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax them. Now your thigh muscles, crunch your thighs. Crunch, hold, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. And now I do stomach and arms. So crunch the arms and the tummy. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. And you go through 3 rotations: the feet, the calves, the thighs, tummy and arms, and then again. And this is taking the body's muscular tension, leaning into it, creating more tension, and then getting that antispasmodic unravel. As you then release the muscles, you get that lovely unravel. And the body, the muscular relaxation is immediate. With your breathing, there's an immediate response. And with the water on the wrists, immediate response. So it's a really fast way of bringing oneself down into that window of tolerance. So you get out of dysregulation and down into tolerance. Okay with
Nice.
that?
Yeah. No, I feel talking about the word softening, I feel softer already. Yeah.
Oh, good. I'd like to pick you up on something if I can. You talked about, and I know you didn't say it too heavily, but you were talking about, I know I'm an addict, or I have addiction. Um, and I know you said to me, I don't think about, alcohol addiction every day. That's not really in my awareness, and you did say that, but I just want to talk about what we call identification, right? In fact, let's remove alcohol out of it for a minute just to make it maybe a little easier. When a client says to me, I'm depressed, I ask them to shift the words and say, let's use the terms, I'm aware of this state of depression, or, I'm aware of depression. So I am depressed versus I'm aware of this state of depression. So I am depressed is an identification, one's identifying with the depression. But just to say, I'm aware of, being an awareness versus an identification are 2 very different positions to hold. And again, when it comes to addiction, I'm aware of the state of addiction versus, I know I'm an addict. So I encourage you to always be aware that you're not putting identification on these symptoms
Okay.
on you. That you become the neutral observer. You step away and look in. I am aware of this state of anxiety. I'm aware of my state of arousal. I'm aware of my state of depression, or I'm aware of. So to be aware of is certainly not to identify with. So
So sorry to interrupt, would you say someone saying for the rest of their life then, after giving up drinking and then they're 50 years sober, that them identifying as an alcoholic every day isn't good for them, or is it, or would you have the attitude each to their own and whatever works for them, or what?
Well, because I've been blessed in that I've never struggled with addiction to alcohol. I would be, you won't be surprised to hear I'd be so reluctant to tell anybody what to do, who's so bravely going on the journey of sobriety. And I think if it helps them with their sobriety, I understand why they would use such a rigid and such an identifying term. I'm an alcoholic, right? What concerns me, and when I talk to clients about this, I'm always just concerned about maybe if you're going to be rigid with that identifying phrase, how might it be holding you back in other aspects of yourself? You know, it may not be, but what if it's actually holding back other developmental parts of you that need to be looked at by so rigidly hanging on to the identification of, the addict? And for
Mm-hmm.
some, maybe it's, not so much an issue, but I think it's interesting to maybe look at alternative ways of still holding your sobriety, but maybe just looking at the terms a little different. Again, you made the point. Everyone all to their own. But
Yeah.
that's the position I would hold on that.
No, it really appeals to me though that I mean I don't think we ever spoken about it like this, but it really the idea that I don't have to identify as a for the rest of my life is very well. There's a kind of a release feeling of it, not in a dangerous way, not in a way where I'm about to go to the pub, but in a way where it's like, I can, yeah, even just now, just literally by those words coming from your mouth, it's like, okay, in this moment, that's how it's affecting me.
Okay, good. Yeah, let's put in the phrase um, manipulator, because we were talking about that a little earlier. You know, someone suggested that you were a manipulator. Well, okay, maybe you can be aware of that state of manipulation. I'm aware of the state of manipulation, right? So again, we can respectfully you can look at yourself and look at your behavior and identify where there is states of manipulation going on in you. And in observing those states, observing those momentary behaviors, you can own them, you can change them, you can identify them, you can challenge them. But we're not going to get all catastrophized and go, oh my God, I'm a manipulator. The I ams are
Mm-hmm.
the I ams are dangerous. They can be very helpful when they're positive affirmational statements, but when they're not so, they can be quite a challenge. The I ams, the who am I's. I'm reminded of the wonderful book by Baba Ramdas. And his book is entitled the wonderful title of Becoming Nobody.
Nice.
My favorite title of any book, I think. um, yeah. So I'm
Taking
glad that's
note of
brought
that.
some relief to you, Stephen.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Well, I suppose, yeah, I mean, I mean, I think we started talking earlier about identity, and yeah, I think there is a search for that real identity or lack of, or becoming nobody, uh, and being
let
okay
me,
with that.
yeah, and let me at this juncture in our session, let me um, ask you. You stepped up with ownership of the task of making sure we in some way at least picked up on the previous agenda from the last session, which was the softening.
Hmm.
As we're now winding down on session, I feel as if the softening is something we have journeyed with, and we have held to that responsibility of bringing it to the table and working with it. And that as we finish session, let's reflect, if we can, reflect on that topic of softening and maybe your wrap up thoughts on that particular topic for today.
Yeah, I think that I think yes, absolutely. It's been like a thread through the session. Um, I think that we have, one of the beautiful things about our working relationship is that we 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 can go in many many directions,
Yeah.
um, and uh, yeah. I mean, and that's the beauty of therapy is that we start talking about softening, but then we dig and dig, and then we go in what that, and then that relates to that, and that relates to that, and so yeah, and I think I've certainly you've helped me uncover and understand a little of my journey with this stuff. And I suppose if I was to be brutally honest, I would say that I want to look more at it, because I think that I don't know if I have the antidote yet, or the complete understanding of how I'm going to be better at it. I think just to pluck a couple of things that you've suggested. I like that you said about sitting down with Rebecca and, really having this conversation again in a more reasonable way. And maybe that'll open the door to me being a more patient person. I don't know. I think there's still more to explore, but I think that I feel like I was brave in a way as well to say this to you, because it's very uncomfortable for me actually to think of, because I like to think of myself as a good person. And so when someone comes to you and says something that's kind of icky kind of words, it's hard to deal with. So, and it's good, but it's good. It's better to be out in the open talking about it than keeping it inside. So,
Indeed. And, good people do on occasion manipulate. This is not a challenge to your identity as a good person. Within your goodness, you behave in many different ways, and they're not all perfect or just so. Good people can do not so good things. But we're not going to identify with over-identify with just one behavior. I'm going to say to you, I'm glad to hear you're going to talk to Rebecca. If we can bring that back to the table at the top of next session, I think that would be relevant and important. And I would just encourage you to take the approach of curiosity when you're having the conversation with her. So to take you away from the natural defensiveness, just to try and lean in on that conversation with her with curiosity. Be curious about understanding more, understanding where she's coming from, where the therapist's thoughts were coming from, maybe what was being discussed at the time. And let me tell you that it's all about the detail. So really ask loads of questions about it. Ask for detail. Detail will bring so much forth in your awareness and understanding of this. So be curious, question, explore, and continue your bravery. And you're both being brave in this, so I wish you luck with it. And we'll pick up on this next time. Yeah.
Thanks, Zach. Yeah, fantastic.
Okay. Be gentle. Mind yourself. Talk soon.
Talk soon. Thanks, Zach. Bye bye.
Disclaimer: the opinions expressed by our presenters are entirely their own. We believe in fostering an environment that values intellectual diversity, enabling our presenters to share their unique insights and viewpoints. It is crucial for our audience to recognise that the opinions articulated during the course of this programme are those of the individual presenters and do not reflect or represent any other individuals, agencies or organisations. If you wish to contact Zach Powers, please email him at bergenpsychological.com. If you wish to contact Stephen, please go to stephendaltonvo.com.